Oh, welcome in, everyone. Apologize. It has felt like a really long time since we have done this show, so I'm a little rusty right now. Welcome in to the Oregon channel here on the Voice of College Football. I'm Ben of Exploring Ben. Of course, we've got Brandon back now. Brandon, how you been? Because it's only been like 33 days since the bowl game, but it feels like an eternity already in the off season, and it sucks.
Yep, I agree. Ever since football ended, I am not happy about it. But since the bowl game, I didn't get a chance to do the post game for that one. However, a lot of things have changed, so a lot of things are going to change from here on out too.
Definitely. The off season is the worst time of the year because what you were focused on each week, you look forward to. Now you have to replace it with something else, or just bore yourself to death, one or the other. But Brandon still needs social media, so I can't help promote him more than is Brandon. But I am a Ben of Exploring with Ben Sam. You can find me here. Drop me a link in the chat for you guys. But you also find me on the Sunday show After Dark, the CFB After Dark show on the main channel for Mark Rogers. And let's get into it because the 2022 season is officially over. But there was a lot to think about and talk about before the season even started, of course, with Mario Cristobal leaving to go back to his alma mater. Can't fault him for that. But then Dan Lanning coming in, the Twitter spaces, all the background noise of people revolting a little bit here and there. So what was your expectations, Brandon, when you thought, okay, new coach, new staff, players leaving? What did you really think before last season?
Until we got Bo Nix, even after we got Bo Nix, I was very, very skeptical. I was like, all right, great. If we could just end up with a winning season, I was going to be a happy duck, right? And I'm a West Coast duck, or East Coast duck. So I'm not even a West Coast duck. I would have been happy with that and called it good. But we did a little better than that.
Yeah, I think for me, I was always like, okay, let's see what we got. We got a young, energetic coach. Then he went out and got even younger or around the same age range as him. He salvaged the whole recruiting class for the most part. Obviously it dropped significantly from what it was projected to be. Brought in some transfers, including Bo Nix, which I was skeptical about. I'll be the first one to say I was very skeptical going, we'll see. Spring game rolled around. Bo Nix looked really good. So I was like, okay, I'll trust the coaches. Did you have like a minimum win, like top level, like this is the best we can do, or this is the worst we could do, like win wise?
I'm not going to lie. I thought we would win 6 and get to a bowl game. I really was like, all right, look, I think winning season, get to a bowl game, I would have been happy at the beginning of the season. Maximum, I thought, you know what? If some of these other teams don't do well, we maybe hit 9 wins. That would have been a stellar season for me. And of course, we did better than that, which, very surprising. But you looked at the beginning of that schedule, starting off with Georgia. You're like, well, that's already one we're going to lose. So,
yeah, no, that's fair. I guess I was the same range. I thought with what we have on the roster already, I thought immediately at least 8 wins. 8 wins was like the floor.
Yeah,
I think 11 was about my max, maybe with a conference title appearance. Whether we could win the conference, title, but that was pretty much anything above that, of course, would be amazing. The Georgia one, I wanted to be a little more optimistic about, but I don't even think we need to really go too heavily into that. But I think you have. But yeah, I agree. We fell into that still really, really good range. Like 10-win season at the end. Most Duck fans won't complain. There's going to be the ones that, of course, do, but
yeah,
you can't please everyone. Let's put it that way, no matter what you do. And I think you have that 2022 season pulled up, don't you?
I do. Yeah, ready to go.
Let's look at it. Oh God, I already had to do that post game of the Georgia one by myself, following that game by myself for like an hour. That was painful. I don't really want to have to relive it too much myself. What did you think about that game?
I had my brother-in-law who was a Georgia fan, my father-in-law who was a Buckeye fan, all at my house watching that game. It was hard to watch, especially because the Georgia fan, my brother-in-law, and he was just loving it. He was like, I had this right here, this Ducks flag up in the background and everything. Like I had 2 TVs up so you could watch other games, anything else that was going on. Man, it hurt. It hurt to watch that game. I don't think I've ever watched Ducks. Well, no, I lied. The TCU game where we played and they came back and they beat us after a 31-point deficit. That was the hardest game to watch as a Duck. This one is number 2.
I almost have to disagree in the fact that TCU one's worse because of the fact they came back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the worst. That was the worst one. I'm gonna have to pull this off because for some reason you're breaking up. At least on my end, I don't know if it's happening in the chat. If anyone could tell us, is Brandon breaking up by any means? It could just be because of the stream we put up. If we have to, we can remove that. But if someone in the chat wants to let us know if it's clear on your guys' end, then we're good. I can hear him, but it's just kind of breaking up. But yeah, that was a from start to finish. It was a tough game. But at the same time, I think it was almost better it happened that way because the coaching staff went back to the drawing board and went, okay, what we did here wasn't working. And it just showed the superiority that of Georgia. They completely out-schemed, outplayed, even talent, roster. Everything across the board. But the one positive in that game, Oregon moved the ball on them. Actually, pretty well. They just never could do anything with it. That was the disconnect with the offense, is they couldn't capitalize for points. So that was good and bad. It was bad. I mean, let's not sugarcoat that it was bad, but yeah, it was painful.
Well, let's not forget the very, very next game. We came out with a 70-14 win against Eastern Washington. And okay, I'm not saying Eastern Washington is a great team or anything like that. But, I mean, to go from a 49-3 loss to a 70-14 win, I mean, that takes someone had a speech at some time during that week, and I'm assuming it was Dan Lanning. That was absolutely amazing.
Oh, no, 100%. I tried pulling it off, see if it stopped the breakup, but it was still going. But we'll see if it continues. But we had the schedule that we looked at in a second. We'll keep going game by game here. But, yeah, no, and I didn't want to take too much out of that Eastern Washington game. Great performance by the team. But, yeah, that was a team that literally could have just said, screw it. And that coaching staff said, we got this. We got this. We're going to game plan. We're going to figure it out. And then they did some tweaks because after that, you didn't see Seven McGee streaking down the field for a 50-50 ball.
Yep.
Again, because having a 5'9" receiver trying to do that was probably not the greatest idea against Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the best idea. And they tweaked that very quickly. So I didn't want to take a whole lot out of the Eastern Washington game, but it was a very good performance regardless. Yes, very impressive. Because even 7 of that points by Eastern Washington was, I think, the last 5-6 minutes of the game or something like that. I mean, point is they held them in check the entire game. So that was a good one. The BYU one was the one that actually I was a little hesitant about at the beginning of the year because BYU had been pretty good the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So that one actually kind of had me a little like, okay, this could be a real game. And the final score is a little deceiving, though, of how that game really went.
I agree. I'm trying to find the exact. Okay, there it was. BYU was ranked 12th when we played them. That's pretty big. I mean, we played the 12th ranked team in the country, and we beat them 41-20. Now, it was a little bit closer of a game than the score might let on, but I also think at times we dominated it, and there was no chance of them coming back. It was what it felt like as the game kind of progressed.
Well, and after the Georgia loss, we went from like 12th to unranked.
Yeah.
So BYU came in as technically, I don't remember if they were exactly the favorite on the betting lines or anything like that, but I mean, they were at least, I think, a 3-point favorite or something like that. But Oregon might have been a 3-point favorite. I can't remember exactly, but the first half, I mean, I think it was like 31-7
Yeah.
at halftime or something like that. It was like, that's why the score seems closer than it really was, because Oregon just kind of cruised in the second half for the most part, which was a little bit of a unfortunate thing, because that's kind of what Oregon did the rest of the season a little bit in some ways.
Oh, yeah.
They kind of would cruise in that second half a little bit. And so the stats and the statistics didn't look as great as they maybe were. But
I got the score.
that game showed that first, I think at the very end of the half, Oregon scored a touchdown with like 10 seconds left or something like that, or to end the half. And that started to show Lanning's time management.
Yeah.
That he actually could, and Dillingham, as the OC, could actually do a really good job at doing time management.
Yeah, it was 21-7 at halftime. I mean,
21.
it was 24-7. Sorry.
Oh, 24. Okay.
At halftime, and that was pretty remarkable, especially seeing as we just got beat by the number one team. You know, again, just an astronomical amount, and we come back against the number 12 team, and hey, we're up at just destroying them at half. And there were times, at least in the first half, if I do recall correctly, I thought it was going to be a absolute shutout where it was going to be 0. Towards that fourth quarter, though, I don't know, we almost like fell apart. I think we put in I can't recall. I think we put in our secondary. They just were not playing anywhere near. I'm trying to find some of the information on it because it's been a while, so I don't quite remember all of it.
Yeah.
But they just kept running on us, and I feel like we could not stop them.
I mean, I'm not surprised by that. I mean, the one thing that we always thought at the beginning of the year, the secondary was going to be a weakness in 2022.
Yeah.
That was going to be the weakness. It turned out to be, in the end, part of the weakness. But, yeah, it seemed to be late in the games, not just this one, but later on, too. The defense kind of went meh and just kind of like, just, we're good. Just don't let it get too crazy, basically.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, though. I kind of forgot the first 3 quarters of this game were pretty much an absolute blowout. And I actually kind of forgotten about that. I would have thought in the third and fourth quarter that they were closer. But they had scored more of their points in the third and then the fourth quarter. So that's actually it's nice to go back through these because I definitely forgot about that.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I know it was like they had gotten a touchdown in the first half, and that's why I was like, it was something. I couldn't remember the exact score either because that's it. That already feels like so long ago. And then following that, we had the heart attack game.
That's a good way to put it.
The heart attack.
This was in Pullman, though. This was a big away game for us. And I think, other than Georgia, this was our first real away game that we had as a team. So I kind of expected it to be a little bit more off and just not play on our A game as we had been the last couple of times. And I really thought there was a chance that we would actually lose this one.
Well, okay. I mean, I'll be fair. I didn't think it was going to be like a super easy game, but this one with like 6 minutes left in the fourth, I was like, and we lost the game.
Yeah,
I went, game's over. We're done. There's no way. we're going to come back from this. But we've been so, how do you say it? We've gotten so used to crystal ball offenses where if you go down, you're not coming back. So
Yeah.
it was so nice to see an offense that was like, hey, 3 plays, we can score a touchdown too. Because we have to. Not because we want to, but because we have to. And they could actually fight from behind and come back and pull off a win like that. Because I literally was like, that's it, game over. I think I literally tossed the remote away. I was like, crap. Now I got to do this post-game show too.
Yeah.
So it was definitely refreshing to at least see that. And the defense step up when they needed to, because that first half was just a disaster.
Yeah, it was. And it being in a foreign place, I kind of expected it, like I said. And I mean, we came out with a victory at the end of it, and I was very happy. That was another one of those games that really had you on the edge of your seat, and you did not know 100% which way it was going to go. Unlike the next one, which was a Stanford Cardinal. And I'm not going to lie, this is one of those games that I thought they were in Eugene. Stanford's okay. I don't want to be mean, but Stanford was not a great team last year. I don't mean to be, absolutely harsh on that, but I really didn't think it was going to be a 45-27. We won pretty handily, but I feel like at home we should have won by a little bit more.
I have to agree with that. I mean, I'm satisfied with it. It was a little revenge for last year, because last year was just like a curse.
Yeah.
That game was cursed from the get-go. The day before it was cursed when our Williams, I believe, the safety, broke his leg.
Yeah.
In practice. It was it was just cursed last year. But so this was nice to see this, get a little revenge, maybe not be too harsh on Stanford, maybe not be, because we were in control, and then Stanford kind of put up some points at the end.
Yeah.
Again, kind of like what we've seen and so far talked about is the defense kind of giving up some stuff at the end, which, I mean, it is what it is. But at the same time, I would like to see like one of those games where that defense just says, we're not allowing anything.
Yeah.
I'd like to see one of those games. So, but it was a victory. To be honest with you, Arizona was the one I was scared of.
Yeah. See, now I had thought what we had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. I really thought this was the game. I mean, we were going to Arizona, so I had my doubts, but I really thought this was going to be the game when our defense was like, hey, we realized what we were doing wrong and we're going to fix it. I mean, we scored 45 points, so I'm not saying that we played a bad game, but we also allowed 27 points. And so far, we have allowed just an astronomical points, or astronomical amount of points that maybe we probably shouldn't have. And I thought this was going to be where we finally got our act together with defense just before we went into the bye week and then played UCLA. And that really didn't happen as much as I hoped. But why did you think it was going to be this was the what game to worry about?
Well, last year, the strength of our team really was kind of our defense last year. The offense was good, but it wasn't great last year. It was just kind of steady as she goes.
Yeah.
The defense held that team in check last year. They won us a couple games, one against Arizona at Autzen. Arizona was a 1-11 team last year, but they were not like a terrible team. They just couldn't get the victories. So I was like, well, this year they're going to be better. And now we have to play at Arizona. That's why it scared me, because also we have curses in the desert.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong.
That's why it scared me. And this was the first game they said at the beginning of the game. They said, this is the first sellout at the Wildcat Stadium in like 5 years. And I was like, oh, crap. Oh, no. It's a curse. This is it. We're cursed. But Oregon sent the crowd home sad by the mid second quarter.
Yep, I agree.
So, Yeah, we gave up 22 points, but Arizona's not a bad offensive team. So I was like, okay, I'm okay with this. Okay. We got through that.
Now, I'm going to move us straight on to UCLA because this was my favorite game of the entire season. This was the one where it's Chip Kelly coming back to Eugene. This is Dan Lanning proving he can beat out what we used to be. This is, hey, can we actually compete with one of the top teams in the Pac-12 after
A
losing to
good
Notre
UCLA team. A good UCLA team.
Yeah. I really, honest to goodness, I was picking Oregon to win it. Obviously, I'm gonna pick Oregon to win it every game that they play. I'm an Oregon fan. That's what we do. But at the end of the day, I was like, it's gonna be close. I really don't know at the end of the game which way it's gonna turn. It could be a field goal game. And it felt like from the beginning, Dan Lanning took some risks the entirety of the game. I believe, and my memory serves me incorrect, but there was a kick no, he did an onside kick in the middle of the game or something like that. And it it worked out in our favor. The odds were stacked so far against that play, and it worked so well. Do you recall?
Second quarter, I think we just scored. It was 21-14, but
Yeah.
he was like, we're not going to stop them at that point. So they took the risk, steal a possession, and from there, went straight down the field again on UCLA and that definitely turned the entire game. That's a nut check right there. That's a coach on the sideline with an OC going, and the special teams guy going, got you. We got you. That's a ballsy move. That's a ballsy move to do.
No, I agree 100%. And it just felt like after that, the game couldn't be lost by us. We had time after time, we would just go run down the field and score it. And every once in a while, they would score it back with us. But before that play, it was neck and neck. It could have gone either way. After that, it felt like we owned the game, even though the score was 45-30, 15-point deficit. Yeah, I get it. But it could have gone either way before that. If we didn't make that play, who knows how that game would have ended.
Well, and again, I think it was after halftime. I don't remember if we got the ball after half or UCLA did, but UCLA went and scored eventually, whether it was their first drive or they got the ball from us. And then Dillingham and Dan Lanning went, you know what? Let's do an 8-minute drive and go for a fourth down twice and just run it down their throats. And that, when they scored a touchdown, then I was like, that's game. That's check and mate. The onside kick was check. That was mate. No, you're not coming into our house on this day and doing this to us.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that game, very satisfying. If you're a Duck fan, if you've been a Duck fan for a while, that's probably the most satisfying game of the entire season. I'm not gonna lie.
It was extremely satisfying. That was a great post game to do. That one was enjoyable. That was enjoyable to do.
Now, moving on to the California Golden Bears. This is a game, and to be honest with you, the Colorado Buffaloes. These are two games that it felt like we couldn't lose. It felt like we were on cloud nine, and we weren't going to lose a game for the rest of the season. Obviously, you can see on the screen that wasn't the case. However,
way to be a downer there, Brandon. Way to be a downer.
Yeah. But we were scoring 40 points a game. We were just killing it. Our defense looked like it finally found a little bit of a stride. As you can see here, what we had 24 and 10 points allowed in two separate games. Of course, these are not the best offenses that we've ever played. We definitely could have done worse. But it felt like going into the Husky game, we played them in Eugene, that this was going to be a game that we would win. And I'm not going to lie. I don't know about you. At this point in the season, I was thinking, man, we might make it to the Pac-12 championship. We might even make it to the playoffs. Because all we have to do is beat the Huskies, beat the Utes, and beat the Beavs, which traditionally speaking is hard, but pretty likely.
Well, that was the worst stretch of our season. Was the last three. The Cal game, it was sluggish for a while. That was to be expected after the UCLA game. Colorado, no problems with that game, period. Minus like one blown coverage that cost us a long touchdown, as I recall. But that's fine. Washington game, that one, as seeing what Washington was doing statistically, did make me nervous. And the lack of a secondary showed up big time in that game. That, and at some point in the game, I don't remember exactly when it was, I said, please, for the love of God, do not try another onside kick. And then they tried an onside kick and didn't get it. And I'm like, no, that is a one-time a year thing. You don't do it again because people are going to expect it.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the Washington game, though, you look at the Washington game and the Beaver game. Look, 2 losses, 7 points total. 7 total points in those 2 losses. That's it.
Yeah.
That's not terrible. It just happened at the wrong time of the year against the wrong teams. You know?
And
especially the Beaver.
I want to say Raymond actually threw up a chat there. It says our recruits in 2023 are bigger and faster than the 2022 team, according to Dan Lanning. And you know what? Maybe if we had some of those recruits, some of these close games here, maybe it wouldn't have been as close. Because I feel like they were so close, it could have gone either way.
Yeah, I mean, two losses. I mean, that's what hurts the most. Is those 2, especially after with a injured Bo Nix, doing what we just did, you see there to Utah, was impressive.
Yeah,
low scoring. Nick's not efficient, or definitely not mobile, but being able to win, it was like sweet. All we had to do was beat the Beavers, and we were still going to the title game. And our defense all of a sudden couldn't defend the run. The one thing that we've been doing all year, and all of a sudden it's like, it's cool. Just keep running the same play. It's cool. Just keep doing. Yeah. Thanks, Connor. Yeah, thanks, Connor. We love you too.
Yeah. No, this game hurt. The Huskies losing to the Huskies, especially in Eugene. I believe we had one of the longest streaks of not losing in our home stadium in the country, and that was broken by the Huskies in that game.
Yeah.
That hurt.
Yeah, that was tough. That was tough.
I mean, nobody's going to live that down. And of course, we hadn't lost the Beavers in quite some time.
Yeah.
So
we were up in that game too, and then all of a sudden, again, our run defense was like, nah, oh well, and just let them run down the field on us. It was so bizarre. I was like, what is happening right now? This is like the worst case scenario.
Oh yeah, and especially because we played them in Corvallis. I knew it was going to be a closer.
Connor, correct me if I'm wrong. Reeser Stadium this year was called the construction zone, right? Or the construction site, because it was only like half capacity, I believe. I think that's correct. That's not making fun of Reeser Stadium because it's under construction, but that's what they were calling it. I mean, but that still made it almost worse. It was like, what the hell, guys? But I will say, I am very happy to have gotten the Holiday Bowl when bowl selection came out. We didn't get the conference title, obviously anointed conference title spot, but I was just happy not to see Alamo Bowl.
Yeah. I feel like we've got that one a couple times.
Yeah, I was just really happy not to see Alamo Bowl. But I also, at the same time, and I'd heard some other people say, like, I don't think Alamo Bowl wants us back anymore because we'd already been there several times, in several years. So it was like, it was time to go to a different game. So I was actually really happy to see the Holiday Bowl come up. I wasn't thrilled to see North Carolina, though. I will be honest. I was not super thrilled to see North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When we first got North Carolina as the team that we were gonna play, I was like, well, that sucks. I kind of want more of a challenge. As we started diving a little bit deeper into it, I was like, you know what? Maybe North Carolina is gonna be a very good challenge, especially when you realize that their coach is as good and as tenured as he is. Sorry, I'm reading some of the chats. And
I know. I'm reading too, and I'm like, I'm seeing all the haters in here.
yeah, we are y'all going to be able to get some of the recruits after Uncle Phil Croaks?
Yeah.
More than likely, I
Will,
hope so.
Will, Notre Dame, you lost to Stanford. Get out of here. They did lose to Stanford. I want to remind Will of that.
Right, I forgot about that. They lost to Stanford.
Yeah. At home,
Sorry.
too, by the way. Yeah. Sorry, Will. Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it'd be a good game. I think, like a lot of people, I thought this was going to be extremely high scoring. I saw 45, 42, maybe even 50, 48. I thought it was going to be like a shootout because knowing our defense, our secondary, their quarterback, I was like, ugh, this could be one of those. This is going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth type of games.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I'm reading some of those chats again.
I know.
But, yeah, it seems that we've got hater week.
I like it.
But no, I mean, this game I really thought was going to be a much, much, much higher scoring game than it was, and it was a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be as well. I genuinely expected this to be a very, very at the first half of the game was going to be close. Towards the second half, I really thought we were going to pull away a little bit farther than we did.
Yeah, I think now I could be 100% wrong on this, but I believe going into the game, wasn't Oregon favored by like 14?
Yes.
And so I was actually really surprised. I mean, not surprised, but actually really impressed with North Carolina's defense of what they were able to do. Now, Nix wasn't running around like he normally would. I think they had game planned to not have him run. That took away a little bit of our game, the normal game plan. But I was actually really impressed with what North Carolina did with their defense. But all you have to say at the end of the game, besides the heroics of how fitting it was Coda to go out with a game-winning touchdown reception to get out, to leave college. But God, Mac Brown has to hate playing Ducks. He's got to hate playing the Ducks. Mac Brown is like, is he like 1-3 or 0-3 against the Ducks, like all time?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has to absolutely hate playing the Ducks.
Yeah, Chase Coda, Mikey G. I mean, that's a guy that we were going to be talking about for years and years to come. That guy came in clutch so many times, and whether it was third down, fourth down, first down, doesn't matter. That dude was catching balls and making touchdowns. Like, you could not stop him.
Yeah, he actually performed way better this year than I thought he would have. When he transferred from UCLA to us, I thought, okay, great receiver depth. Oh, he became the number 2 target. So when he went out those couple weeks with that injury, I was like, oh no. But yeah, he came back, and what a way to solidify himself at the end there, like with that type of ending. Like, just couldn't ask more. Couldn't ask more.
I agree. All right.
But that's I mean, so yeah. My peak was 10 win. Well, it wasn't the regular season, but at the end of the season it was 10-3. I'm not going to complain with that, with a new staff that had to salvage a recruiting class and install whole new systems and all that. I'm not going to complain too much. I'm not going to harp too much. I'll be nice at this point.
I agree. I think at the end of the day, our season was solid, not amazing, but it was very good. I mean, we had a 10-win season, and as a Ducks fan, we should be happy with that. There was nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Well,
I think most teams in the country be happy with a 10-win season.
exactly. Oh, most teams would kill for a 10-win season, especially back-to-back 10-win seasons, consistently like on that around that verge. Some teams don't even get 10 wins ever. So you can't complain here too much, but there's um, there's also, because I see you brought the 2023 season.
Yep.
I think we have to look at, because we've had a lot of change also since the offseason even started. Of course, before the bowl game, Kenny Dillingham, surprisingly, I was surprised by that he left. I thought he would be with us for about 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And he would leave. I mean, I didn't figure if he had success like he did this year, he would stick around. I'm not blind, but I was surprised that, because I thought this ASU rumor died in like early November.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it came back like, nope, they hired him. I'm like, God, come on. Come on.
My favorite article here, just dead center of the screen, is what on earth is Arizona State football doing? And you know what? I mean, to one extent, this is the youngest college football coach that I believe you've ever graced the sport, head coach. But I mean, the guy has put together. I mean, if you look what he put together for us, the season he put together is absolutely phenomenal. The things that he did with our offense, with what we had, was amazing. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to reproduce that in the 2023 season.
It's I don't have the actual like national statistics in front of me, but with Kenny Dillingham, in his first season as an actual play caller, led Bo Nix. Let me repeat that for people that are confused and haven't been watching football. So yes, that Bo Nix to a 3,600 passing yard season with 29 touchdowns, 7 picks. Now, a couple of those were fluky picks. The couple of those were some wild. That North Carolina pick that he threw, that was wild. Where the defender like kicked it in the air. That one was wild. But that's his best statistical season ever. And rushing, the team as a whole ran for almost 3,000 yards also. And that's his first time play calling with a brand new team of players that a lot of them he didn't recruit.
Yeah.
It was impressive, the staff Lanning put together and the job that Dillingham did. I mean, it was quite impressive. I will say that.
No, I absolutely agree. 120%. I am curious as to how we're going to follow up with that. We got Bo Nix for another season, and we open against Portland State Vikings. I mean, the class that we have put together, the quarterback that we retained, I think we should have a very good offense, regardless of who's calling the plays. Bo Nix should be able to make adjustments and change the play if necessary, if they give him the same amount of freedoms that he had this particular year.
Well, and that's it. If he can get into the playbook as well as he was last year, where he was making a lot of adjustments. He wasn't doing play calls, but he was making a lot of his own adjustments. They gave him that willingness. This should be a nice warm-up game, with all due respect to the Vikings of Portland State. Take your check and take your check and move on.
I mean, and because of course the real game that we're looking forward to here is the Texas Tech game, and Daryl MVP 24 says, "Has Oregon ever played Texas Tech?" You know what? That's a great question. I
don't think we ever have played Texas Tech, and we have a home and home with them, Daryl. So they're coming this year, and we go next year or the following year. Or they come the following year or the next year after that. They come to Autzen.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever played Texas Tech that I could.
I don't recall a time that we have. Oh, okay. I lied. Oregon Ducks football and Texas Tech have been playing each other since 1925.
Wow. Okay. I'm not even going to count those games then. We're just going to start a whole new one because those games don't. those were like completely different teams, obviously. But you're correct. This game I'm really looking forward to because this is an interesting one. Because Texas Tech kind of outperformed this year, I think, what people thought they might do with their new head coach.
100%.
Plus, this is as we said earlier, this is the revenge game for Tyler Shuck, the former Oregon quarterback, against his old team.
That's true. That's very true. I actually forgot about that. I think that's going to make quite the storyline for the game, at least.
Exactly, right there. And Darrell just asked it after, right as we were saying it. Yes, Texas Tech's quarterback, his former Oregon quarterback from 2020, Tyler Shuck, who got beaten out by Anthony Brown. So Tyler Shuck is still the Texas Tech quarterback. So it is a kind of an odd connection, but an interesting one.
I agree. And I think at the end of the day, no offense to Texas Tech, but I really do think we're going to win this one. But I think this is going to be a much closer game than whatever Vegas comes out and says it's going to be. Vegas is probably going to come out and say this is going to be a 14-plus point game. I don't think it's going to be that close. I honestly think this one could even come down to a field goal difference on who actually wins the game. Because we're going to their stadium.
Yep. And
they were good last year, and momentum carries.
Yep. And we're also, again, like we said, Dillingham's gone. So our offense might be still kind of adjusting. That's kind of nice to have the Portland State first. Because if Texas Tech was first, I might be a little more like, uh-oh.
Yeah. But
it's going to be a good game, regardless. I do think we pull it out, but we'll have to see how it goes. Because I mean, this it's it's in Lubbock. I mean, if it was in Autzen, I probably wouldn't be even like whatever. But it's at Lubbock, and Oregon has not done great in Texas lately.
Yeah, well, and let's just Daryl again. Another stellar comment here says there's some people that think Texas Tech can win the Big 12, and so that could be a difficult game. I mean, the Big 12 is a good conference. Obviously, they sent someone to the the championship games this year, or not champion, but the playoffs. TCU made it all the way, and then lost out to, of course, Georgia. Which, hey, just saying, we had a better loss than TCU had to Georgia, but
I'm not going to go that route. I think Kirby Smart called off the dogs a bit against Oregon to be nice to Lanning. I think he called off the dogs because when they put in their backups against TCU, I was like, wow, Kirby, don't be such a dick. They were still going for a fourth down and throwing the ball. I was like, don't be a dick, Kirby. Like you should try to make a point or something. I was like, wow. But yeah, Texas Tech will be an interesting game. But after that, we have to host Hawaii. Oh God.
And I got to admit, whenever I see Hawaii on the schedule, I really just write them off. I don't think I've ever really taken Hawaii seriously, other than the fact that, hey, our players get to go to Hawaii once every couple of years, and they get to play a game in Hawaii and be there for a week.
You just called my vacation probably in 2024 when we go to Hawaii for I think week 0. I think it is against Hawaii. I think I might take a vacation back to Hawaii to watch that game.
Yeah, you can watch that play. It's a win-win.
Yeah. So Hawaii, not worried about it. Like in the sense of it, this is not. By the way, chat. This is not us making predictions at this point. We're just discussing the teams. So we are kind of saying not worried about it. We're not making predictions here or score predictions. Relax. And calm yourselves down over
there. I like there's a comment there that says, I'm scared of Hawaii. I thought that was pretty funny.
I'm scared of Hawaii.
I mean, I'm not
maybe in a couple years. Hawaii's rebuilding, they're retooling still. I think they will be better, but not right now.
I agree. I mean, I at one point I do recall an announcer saying that they were the worst team in FBS, and that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't have been surprised by that last year after watching them a couple of games of theirs. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually were, to be honest.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised. So,
well, and then after that, we play a very, very question mark game. Colorado. And normally in the Pac-12, if you play Colorado, your thoughts are, easy win, no big deal. But this year, there's a lot of question marks. Are they going to be good? Are they going to be great? Are they going to be just like they have been? I doubt they're going to be just like they have been. So where in that good to great are they actually going to end up? I don't really know, and I don't think really anybody does.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Sanders has, been making noise, but again, he has to go to Autzen for his first Pac-12 game, like as a coach in the Pac-12. So it's going to be interesting. And as I reminded you earlier, I think it was before the national championship game when they're like, "Hey, you play TCU," because Colorado goes to TCU for their first game next season. He's like, "Not if I can help it." Because then also he has to play Oregon as the Pac-12 opener. He's like, I mean, that's not an easy way to have to start a head coaching job. Not an easy way at all. But I think he's going to make some noise.
If they come out and beat TCU, I think that's a huge statement. Huge statement. And I will probably fear this game if they come out and beat TCU.
If they beat TCU, I will be either TCU is going to take a huge step back, or I will be like, whoa. So
That'll be one of
we'll see, because Colorado is like overhauling their team, so we don't know what we're going to get at this point. So it is an interesting game, to say the least.
And speaking of overhauling, Stanford. They are also kind of going over an overhaul. I believe David Shaw's out.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, that happened.
He resigned. He forced resigned, as most people believe it was. He basically, they said, "You leave, we won't say anything bad about you. You'll be a legend." He's like, "All right, I'm done." But Stanford is with a new coach for the first time in 12 years under David Shaw.
Yeah.
And they are in rebuild.
I have always said, because again, I'm an East Coast Ducks fan. Nobody out here really knows anything about the Pac-12. They all SEC, ACC. So when I tell people, "Hey, we're playing Stanford," and watch the Stanford players, because they would always, "Hey, let me give you a hand up." They would always help the Ducks players up. They had the best sportsmanship. There were some struggles but mostly on the Ducks side. The Stanford players were really upstanding, and I got to give them credit for that. David Shaw always managed to have good players, good manners, and great sportsmanship. They didn't win a lot of games the whole time, but at least I can say that about them.
No, I have nothing but respect for David Shaw. He always seemed like a classy guy. Despite when things weren't going right on the sideline, he would just be there going, but he never threw a tantrum. He never did any of this. Mikey, are we having audio issues again?
Yeah.
Mikey's saying your audio is not great again.
I'm not sure why.
I don't know.
I'm using my Blue Yeti. Should be pretty good. Maybe it's my internet. I'm not 100% sure why. It was great before the stream, or at least I didn't have any complaints before the stream.
Yeah, and it seemed to be going good. Now it seems to kind of now it seems to be chopping again for some reason. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's just the internet. Maybe it's. I
might try to log in with my phone and mute my computer here. We'll see.
All right, try that for a second, and what I'll do is I'll just go on to the Stanford game. That's going to be really interesting. We'll see if Brandon's audio can get kind of corrected. It's probably internet, just a little internet issue. But Cardinal, not super worried about this year. Then, of course, we go into the bye week. And the bye week is a little earlier in the year than we like. But then we have the Huskies, which this is much like for the Huskies against us, this was a revenge game. Well, this is a revenge game for us from last year. But kind of the crappy thing when we're looking at the schedule and we see the bye week before the Huskies, you think, okay, that's good. Well, the Huskies have the same bye week. They are also off before they host us. So that actually kind of adds to the intrigue even more of this game. Do you want me to take you off one, add you in the other one, Brandon? Is that what you want?
Ah,
Oh,
that didn't work.
hold on. I'll remove you. Yeah, that was interesting.
Well,
I think what it is let me do this. We're testing something here, chat. Hold on for a second. Let me mute that. Let me remove that. Okay.
Better.
Maybe. I cannot go into your audio for some reason. Oh, there we go. There we go. We're gonna figure this out, chat. We're gonna figure this out. Let me. Oh, okay. There you go. That's what I was trying to do. Was adjust your echo. I think that's probably it. Noise cancellation. Figuring this out. You gotta love live streams. Technical difficulties. This is what always happens. It's bound to happen. It's the fun of live streaming. It just happens. So, yeah, the Huskies will be a very, very fun game. We're going to see how this goes, because if the Huskies and Penix keep up what they did last year, I mean, it's going to be an offensive game. So it'll be exciting to see what our defense does this year. But it is at Husky Stadium, so it's going to be it could be one of those high-scoring games, just like a shootout. Well, let's see what happens, as the year progresses. And let's see if Brandon's back.
Can you hear me?
Hey, there we go.
All right.
Clear
Hopefully
and
it's
no
not as
echo.
choppy.
Yeah, clear and no echo. That's nice.
All right. That's odd because I got my I don't know if you can see it, my Blue Yeti, and of course a nice little camera here. So not sure on my phone. It just happens to be better, but we'll go with that.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. So, what do you think about the Huskies, though? Because I think that could be a shootout.
I'm not gonna lie. I think it's gonna come very similar to because we're going to Seattle, and that is never an easy place to play. So I have to imagine it's going to be very similar to what we had this year. It's going to come down to a field goal, a touchdown. It's not going to be a all out win by the Ducks. We're going to be talented, and we're going to put the hurt on them. But I really don't think it's going to be an all out victory by the Ducks.
Yeah, no, I expect Washington to be pretty highly ranked too. At this point, I haven't seen their schedule, what they start with exactly, but I'm expecting them to be top 20 at least by this time. So if, still, but yeah, that bye week comes early, unfortunately.
It does. I think it comes a little too early. And I think one thing I noticed about this particular schedule is that, we play Washington Huskies, then we play the Cougars, which is kind of an easier game, especially because it's in Oregon. Then we go play the Utah Utes in their, of course, their home stadium, which that's two games, not quite back to back, but pretty close together. That is going to be tough, and I believe even someone predicted us to lose that one. I think it was up in the chat.
Right there.
Yeah, it says, I think Oregon loses. Well, Oregon's losses are Utah, UW, and Utah, but still win the Pac-12, missing the conference, the college football playoff. And I don't think we lose against the Utah Utes. I agree. The Utah Utes are going to be a good team next year. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but I think we're going to improve enough to where we had an injured Bo Nix, and we still managed to win a game against them this year.
Yeah. And I don't recall if Rising was a little dinged up in that game or not, but they do have Cam Rising back, which is big for the Utes. It is at Utah. That's definitely one of the the games where you go, if we were going to drop one, I could definitely see that being the game. I mean,
Yeah.
Depending on what Utah looks like, obviously by late October, we'll have a much better idea of what they look like as a team. So,
no, I agree.
oh, and then the poor Golden Bears, the Justin Wilcoxes of the world.
Yeah. I don't see this as a difficult victory for the Ducks. I'm not trying to hate again. This whole time, I'm not trying to just throw hate out on any particular team. Trying to be realistic on what I genuinely believe before the season begins on what we actually kind of expect. And I don't see this being a difficult game. I see it being in between the Utah Utes and, of course, the USC Trojans. I see this is going to be a game that we kind of look forward to as a break.
I could see that. I mean, this could be one of those games, too, where you're late in the season where you're like, we got to make a statement game. But I think this is one of those games where it's kind of like, try to just end it by halftime and kind of chill out. Because obviously after that, as you just noted, we have to deal with the Trojans.
Yeah.
Fear the Trojans. I'm kidding. Fear the Trojans. Jesus. That's the game I actually really want to go to next year. I really hope we can send the USC out with a nice loss in Austin Stadium.
I mean, that would be nice. It's been a while since we've had a true game with the Trojans when they are good and expected to be very, very good. I mean, every year I feel like you hear, Trojans are going to be amazing, but only recently have they actually, what I would consider, lived up to the hype for the most part. Oregon will beat USC 41-31. I have to agree with that. I think overall, with our recruiting classes, our coaching, and because we have Bo Nix returning, I think it gives us a clear advantage to win that particular game.
I mean, I would not, if that was the little score of the game at the end of the day, I would take it and run. I wouldn't complain, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. This is definitely one of the starred games next year because you expect Oregon and USC to be probably pretty highly ranked. So this could be kind of like the Pac-12 showdown next year. That or like Oregon, Washington. So
I agree. And, I got to admit, though, this is going to be, and someone kind of stated it in the chat there, kind of brought my attention to it. It is going to be USC's last year in the Pac-12. We can't let them win it. It can't happen.
No,
absolutely not.
I would rather the Huskies win it than the Trojans.
And that's saying a lot.
That's how much I really do not want USC to win the conference period. I would rather the Huskies do it.
And of course,
that hurt me. That hurt me too. That did hurt. That did hurt quite a lot.
And of course, we end the season out, facing Arizona State, which I do see again as being kind of an easier game, going into the more challenging game, which we absolutely should win against Oregon State. There's no way. We cannot lose twice in a row to Oregon State. That is not a thing that happens.
Yeah, Arizona State's going to be interesting because it's the curse of the desert. Now Dillingham's at Arizona State. The offense, I think, will be good for them, but the defense, I think, is still rebuilding. Yeah, the Beavs are going to be the test because obviously the Beavers are good. We have Connor in the chat here, and yes, we respect the Beavers, not just because of this game, but we love you, little brother. You're still going to be our little brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. We shouldn't have lost this last year.
No, he says we're 2-3 this decade. Yeah, I mean, we've gone through, the Oregon has gone through a rough patch, but I believe we're on the other side of it now. And it's going to be, I think it's only a matter of time before we actually get a chance to go to the championship. I don't think we win it. but I think there's a chance that we get up there very shortly. I mean, you look at a schedule like this and you think, man, if we can keep healthy, this is not the worst schedule we've ever had. This is not the toughest schedule we ever had. Heck, if we didn't lose to Georgia this year, even our couple of losses towards the end there, we still could have made a decent case to get out to the Pac-12 championship game. And, well, 2 losses is hard to get into the national playoff picture. But
well, in the Pac-12, we lost to the wrong teams. We
Yeah.
lost to the 2 wrong teams at the last second at the end of the season, all deservedly to Washington and to Oregon State. They played the game. That's why you play these games. It sucks. But like we were saying earlier, 2 losses by 7 points. That hurts a lot.
yeah,
2 losses by 7 points. it hurts, but that's the key, staying healthy.
yeah,
But that's why it's really interesting. And again, this is not a projection show. We're not giving what we think is going to happen next year. Chat, calm down. It's good to see Ferris for once in a while in his manly model face there. It's good to see him back once in a while. Haven't seen you in a while, Ferris. But it's going to be interesting because, like we just said, Dillingham is gone. So what does Oregon do offensively? Because Lanning is a defensive coach. Well, what does Lanning and all of his wisdom go and do? He goes and hires offensive coordinator Will Stein. Who the hell is Will Stein?
yeah.
That was the co-offensive coordinator for UTSA, who is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, younger than Kenny Dillingham.
I believe so. I'm trying to see if I can't find any.
30. Oh, no. I'm sorry. He is 33 years old. So he's basically the same as Dan Lanning. So he's a year older, I think, than Dillingham. He's 33.
Former Louisville quarterback.
Yes. And then he had some other stints here and there, but he's currently listed as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for the Ducks, which, a lot of people don't know who he was or who he is really, but I literally have. So we just talked about Bo Nix having a 3,600-yard passing season, right?
Yeah.
He had, and then we had 33, almost 3,000 yards rushing. What did UTSA's quarterback have? Almost 4,100 yards passing. He had 32 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, which but Nix had, I believe it was 29 and 7. So better passing numbers, similar touchdown interception ratio. What was his rushing totals like? 2,500 yards, so a little less rushing than the Ducks had. Who was our leading receiver?
This year, shoot. I just had him up.
He's just scouting for names now.
Yep.
He's just scrubbing all the pages.
Yep. I don't think I have it right away.
It was Troy Franklin.
There it is.
Now, I believe he had 900. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Troy Franklin, he had 891 yards, 9 touchdowns. UTSA, again, Stein was the co-offensive coordinator, but UTSA, their leading receiver is also named Franklin. He had over 1,100 yards and 15 touchdowns. So I think what we're going to start seeing is a little more pass-happy offense. Now, not necessarily he was the co-coordinator, and I think Lanning likes his style, where it's going to be similar to what we had. But statistically, UTSA had a better offense. Now, of course, that's not the Pac-12. or another Power 5 conference. But Dillingham had never actually called plays in his life. And look what he did.
Yeah.
So statistically, I like what Stein will do, or what it seems like he can bring anyways. It's just, can he scheme it like Dillingham did? I guess is kind of more the question mark.
And I mean, according to this article here, obviously it says similar offense, seamless transition. UTA ran a spread offense with movement in the backfield, a very similar offense that Oregon ran under Kenny Dillingham. One would think it should be a seamless transition for all involved and should not be any massive changes to the Ducks scheme. Is that the case? I mean, rarely does that actually end up being the case when it comes to coaching transitions. But I kind of hope so, because I feel like what we had last year worked, and it worked really, really well.
Yeah, last year the thing that hurt us, ignoring outside the Georgia game, we're not going to dwell on that or make excuses for that. That is what it was. It was the defense, for the most part, that hurt us in those games. That was what did it. So as long as the defense improves, if the offense just stays steady, I don't see why this couldn't be an amazing year. And especially like you said, when Nick's come back, especially if he stays healthy, and can bring back the rushing threat, because that was another glimpse into the stats. Was Bo Nix was the third leading rusher with 510 yards. Now, I mean, of course, he had 14 touchdowns rushing. That's a ridiculous stat line. But he had 510 rushing yards. Last year for UTSA, how many rushing yards do you think their quarterback had?
Well, I have to imagine nowhere near what Bo Nix had. I would say you're probably looking at the 500s.
Well, Bo Nix had 510.
Oh, my fault.
So
sorry.
What do you think UTSA's quarterback had?
110.
609 rushing touchdowns.
Oh gosh.
So actually, very similar. I think you see now. I think now it's clicking. Like Lanning went, this could work. Like
very similar, yeah.
Very, very similar numbers. A little obviously less on the goal line push for the touchdown numbers, but I mean,
yeah,
very similar numbers. So I think that was maybe part of the allure that Lanning had from him. So it will be interesting to see whether this team, and obviously him coming in, has not stopped the offensive recruiting numbers.
No, not at all.
So, and we can go into the whole recruiting thing here in a second. But the other key addition, which a lot of people found very strange, and I didn't find out about until about a week and a half ago when it really happened, was that we're going to have basically two defensive coordinators, as Oregon decided to hire Chris Hampton from Tulane to be the defensive coordinator and safeties coach, which, I mean, bring it on.
I have to ask though, what is the thinking behind that? Like, what's the logic behind that? Why have so many people do the same job? It doesn't seem like that's realistically the easiest or the best choice. That's too many people, too many chiefs, not enough Indians in that particular sense.
That's a good question. And one thing I'm going to bring in, because some slacker finally decided to join us all of a sudden, him and his bearded greatness over here. Mikey G, welcome in. One thing I think was, so Chris Hampton, a lot of people don't know him. He was the DC this year, full-time play caller for Tulane. This was his second season as a full-time play caller. Before that, he was a safeties coach at Tulane, I believe, and then a safeties coach and DBs coach, I think, at North Carolina or North Carolina State. or something like that. Then he went back. Maybe it was Duke. I one of those schools. Then he went back for 2 years at DC, and I'm thinking it's more of. I think I mentioned to you earlier, Brandon. I think it's the thinking of like, look at what Lanning had at Georgia. It was Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, Will Muschamp. More minds can generate better ideas defensively. Yeah, obviously, our defense had some shortcomings, and maybe he's just a better guy to recruit safeties and cornerbacks than Lupoy is. Or maybe this is a sign that he's pushing back against Lupoy. I don't know.
Maybe a little bit. And, of course, Tulane did end up beating the Trojans, so thanks for that.
Good job. Good job, Green Wave. Good job. In epic fashion, by the way. In epic fashion. What say ye, Mikey? Because you haven't been quiet for the last hour.
Yeah. No. I was typing in the chat, don't add me. I just wanted to see how much longer you guys were going to be on here.
No, you jumped in. Now you're sucked into it.
Here I am. All right. Well, you guys are talking about Chapman, I suppose, looking at Tulane.
Yes. Because a lot of people don't
know Hampton, sorry.
Chris Hampton that much. A lot of people don't know about him, So
yeah, including me. I don't. Obviously, I messed up his name. So I think I did watch, the Joey Mack show today, where they did the interviews of both him and Stein, and I was fairly impressed with both of them. They both do a good job of kind of like not just selling themselves, but also Oregon. Like I think that they must have like notes from Dan to say these are the talking points. You got to talk about connection. You got to talk about explosiveness. You got to talk about putting our playmakers in space, that sort of stuff. And so like, I know that's the vernacular of all college football coaches, position coaches and head coaches alike. But at the same time, like it syncs up with everything that we've heard from, Dillingham and Tosh and all of the people that are still relatively new. I mean, we're talking about year one with these guys. They did a phenomenal job, and the turnover is it spins your head sometimes, especially you're talking about the roster, right? Like, what do they say? 39? Is it 39 new additions? That is insane.
I don't remember. I don't remember what the total turnover number was. I don't remember, to be honest, off the top of my head. But
yeah, whatever it is, it is historic. Like,
and that's what we were dealing with first year. You're going to have players, like they said, we're going to put the players in the position we can put them in. And I think that's where our defense kind of fell flat, because it wasn't to the scheme they wanted. But that's why it surprised me, myself personally, when I saw that Utah game and going, our defense can play like this? And then reverted immediately back to like not playing defense. So it was weird. And at that point, I actually thought Lanning took over defensive play calling.
I think there's
told Lupoy screw off. But I don't know what happened between like those 3 games. What happened play calling wise?
No, there's a lot of speculation, right? So I've definitely seen other people speculate as much, wondering how much Dan kind of stepped in and was doing that. And if you think about it, like, you would expect him to. It's not as if he's saying that Tosh is bad or not doing it the right way. It's just not effective in that particular look or scheme of the week. And so, we saw it, man. We were getting burned, in those kind of intermediate level, the essentially the cross routes and all those screen passes and all those kind of intermediate to the flat type throws. And we just couldn't stop it. And we had no pass rush. And that's not going to fly under a Dan Lanning regime. That's just, you can tell that that's a point of pride for him when you're coming off of a national championship with Georgia. He's not just going to let that go. And so you would expect him to do as much.
Well, that's it. Like Brandon just pulled up right now. Loss, 37 points. Win, only gave us 17. Loss, gave us 38. And it's like, what happened? That was literally what I thought. Like Lanning literally said, I'm calling plays. Screw you, or
Well,
whatever.
and I think that's. I mean, so, man, I can't say that I've ever been wrapped up in fandom as I have been in the past 12 to 24 months. And one thing that I've learned is that, and this is probably very Twitter centric, but fans are so quick to throw these players under the bus when there's a lot of learning going on, and there's on both sides, right? Like there's basically a brand new system that you got new head coaches, you got new position coaches. There's the whole thing is brand spanking new, and then oh yeah, by the way, let's play a couple true freshmen, see how they turn out. Like there's so much to kind of figure out. The fact that we were, and I think I was listening earlier, and Brandon, you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about coming off the Georgia game, going into Eastern Washington, and kind of the disparity between those two games was like there's something off here. Like I get that you're playing the best team in the country and going to a middle to upper tier FCS program, but at the same time, you kind of expect to see problems that you saw in that first game, and so there's a lot of moving pieces week to week that were being figured out, and so I think that you just got to kind of like allow for that curve to happen, and I think also the other thing that's head spinning, everything about college football right now spins your head. Just when you think you've got it figured out and there's some sort of stability. I mean, today is a prime example. We think that we're getting Harbor, but we get Pleasant. Like, if there's anything at all, is you got to apply a little bit of reverse psychology and say, oh, I expect this, so the exact opposite will happen. So in other words, hell yeah, we're going to lose. We're going to lose by 1 million to USC. And then you know what? The exact opposite's gonna happen. So, it's nuts. And so I guess what I'm really trying to say is that as fans, we really have to rein it in and allow these schemes and coaches and players to really settle in. And just that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to support our team and not berate them with criticism and say that they're the worst or whatever else. And not that you guys are doing that. I'm just talking from my observations with social media.
With things like Lupoi, and now we've got Hampton. Lupoi seemed a lot more man-to-man kind of coverage. He wanted the linebackers to be crossing the field, chasing down receivers, whereas it's interesting. Hampton is much more zone. So that's one thing they said. I was reading into like his first year at Tulane and second year. First year he wanted man-to-man. Second year he transitioned more to zone. That's when Tulane's defense really got better. Yeah. So I'm almost thinking Lanning is also bringing a nice even mixture of how to do like a man zone split coverage, in his strengths, like who's strongest in man-to-man, and then put zone for the other areas where they don't have the personnel right now or whatever, and also mix up coverages. Almost maybe like an Aliotti defense where he would show like 7 guys on the line and only 3 would rush, but no one knew who was coming. They'd be like, uh-oh, and get nervous. And then he would just drop everyone and be like, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, and the other kind of element that we're obviously prioritizing is speed, right? So if you have speed to your advantage, zone works a little bit better. You can play a softer coverage, and essentially if you've got good instinct and eyes, those I think of Ron McKinley. Like that dude had the complete package in terms of sniffing out the quarterback and the tells that the quarterback had. That's why he was the conference leader in picks coming off his senior season. I'm thinking of Cliff Harris. Like these guys are all fantastic safeties because they have the speed and they have the ability to play a softer coverage. Not that I'm a big fan of zone, especially. So I'm thinking back to the bowl game now. I'm thinking you've got, essentially you have the doink heard around the world. We go up by 1 point. There's I think there was like 20 seconds left in the game,
Something like
and
that. Yeah.
we're playing that prevent D garbage and letting them truck it down the field to get into field goal range.
Yep.
It was brutal, and so that's why I think a lot of fans like me, when you hear zone, you're like, God, please just put him on an island, let him do his job, play man-to-man coverage, let the better man win, kind of thing. But I'm
That's
not
why
an expert on that thing.
I could see it being a mix of like midfield zone. So we're not having linebackers trying to streak across with tight ends that they can't keep up with. Kind of that mixture. I don't know, but
Okay.
the more defensive minds in the room, I have to say probably are better, obviously, because there were deficiencies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
apparently Lanning says Hampton maybe can fix that or help solve it and or recruit those areas of need where Lupoy and himself maybe even can't right now because Lanning is dealing with all other avenues. So, I mean, hey, if we can pay him, bring him on board as he is, and let's see what happens. Because I'm not gonna say it can get worse or better, but obviously the defense was kind of the weak spot for the most part this last year. At times, not all season, but at times. But
Inconsistent.
don't ever remind me about the doink heard around the world. It was 5:30 in the morning in Paris, and I was like, I literally had a heart. I had a heart attack. I'm like, we tied the game. Doink. I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna go to overtime, aren't we? And they were like, no, it's good. I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. I mean, you hope to go into that situation winning more convincingly. I mean, it's a respectable North Carolina team, and I think that I had higher hopes for it, even with opt-outs and all the stuff that you normally deal with in the bowl season. But man, it was an entertaining game, and you got the win, and that's exactly what you want. Like you want to be able to hang your hat on something going into the off season. So that's the way to do it.
At the end of the day, a W is all that matters. That's on the official records. I mean, but so we went over the last season, a little preview of this season coming up, coaching changes. Those are the big ones. But today, today still. I'm almost thinking I'm on Eastern time. Today was National Signing Day, and we're not going to go too in depth with recruits because there are a lot of them. And all I can say is Dan Lanning, once again, did not disappoint. His second year, with all the choices he made, despite Dillingham leaving, has ended up with the Pac-12's best recruiting class. I mean, I'm not going to complain. I would say, what do I expect less of? Nothing. Of course, we should always have the best recruiting class, but for him with coaching changes and stuff, and only his second year to bring in the haul that he did do in the sense of 2 5-stars, and I believe it was what did I say earlier, Brandon? Sorry, 18 4-stars.
Yep.
That's quite a haul. I mean, that is quite a haul. We did lose a couple of recruits. Of course, we lost Dante Moore. That's because I think Bo Nix came back. But to pick up Novacek from Baylor, I believe it was, the 4-star, that's a nice addition because also Butterfield left, not surprisingly. So at least we will have another quarterback in the room. But what do you guys think? Of course, yes, exactly right there. Holding on this whole time to Jurion Dickey. I believe he's the number 2 wide receiver in the country, I believe, is what his actual ranking was, number 2 in the country.
I was pretty close, if not it. And
then, of course, Mateo for the D-line, for specifically, I guess, defensive end. But I'm thrilled with this. I mean, they hit a lot of spots we needed: cornerback, safety, some running backs, of course, more wide receivers, of course, O-line, and another quarterback. So, and linebackers, of course. And this is not counting the transfer portal. This is just the recruiting. Because the transfer portal, of course, they hit some other areas of need, especially like a linebacker. Because I think that was going to be our weak area this next year. And they did touch upon a couple linebackers. So I think that was very important. What do you guys think about it, though?
No, I think you hit it right on the head with a few of obviously the high school people that we got coming in. Ashton Kozart being one of the better wide receivers, I think, coming in, and Jerion Dickey being able to hold on to him the entire time, I think, is also something that is kind of important with today's NIL. I mean, you have who was it that just had a $13 million deal? Florida.
Rashada.
Or
Yeah,
whatever her name
Jaden
is.
Rashada. You know,
Rashada.
you have stuff like this going down, and we're still able to hold on to someone through pretty much most of the recruiting season here. And then you can add in people that we absolutely need going forward. You know, Austin Novosad, and we got a couple of edge rushers as well, like Jaden Moore, and then transfers to fill in the gap for this season. People with experience, people who know how to play the game, people that we need, people that we may have lost. You know, you got another edge rusher. We don't have really a ton. I feel like this year, especially, we didn't really have a ton of edge rushing when maybe that's just coming off of Kayvon Thibodeau and kind of being used to what he can do. I feel like he was underutilized a lot of times, but having someone who can really get around that edge and make a difference in the game on defense is kind of what we lacked a little bit of. I expected Sewell and Flo to have a better season than they ended up having. However, that's kind of my take on it. What do you think, Mikey?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think you look at the class, and just to preface all of this, by no means am I a recruiting expert. Like I said, this has been kind of I've plugged in a lot more in the past year or two, specifically when Mario left, just trying to figure out, you know, what pieces are going to fall into place and what the effect is going to have on the recruiting class. But I do, you know, passively take interest in, you know, the level of talent, where we sit in the class, or, you know, the rankings for the class and all that. All that to say, I think that my observation is that there is a very intentional strategy with recruitment, right? Like we have already harped on how inconsistent the defense was, and if you look at this list, by no means is this an offensive haul. This is predominantly high level talent on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't. The reason why that's significant, I mean, that's you know, that you would expect as much from any head coach. But the thing that's difficult is that these are, for the most part, highly coveted recruits, and to have such a large volume of high talent still say, you know what, I'm going to fight for my position to, you know, if it's cornerbacks, I think there's 6 cornerbacks that all have potential to start, including freshmen. You got Dante Manning, Triquez, you know, and then you talk about the speedsters like Jaleel Florence, Dalen Austin, and then we land Roderick Pleasant today. And so that is a talent pool at cornerback that I cannot remember ever having. I'm fairly certain. And so what do we talk about? What do we talk about? Getting burned on the edge, or, you know, getting those long shots downfield. And again, kind of back to harping on the players. If you look at Triquez, I think it was the Wazoo game where he got burned a couple times, where it was very obvious to the fan watching at home. You're like, holy shit, Triquez was off him by 5 yards, or, you know, all these things. And so that is just if you look at Triquez though specifically, he's moving from a safety to a cornerback and learning that position, and the ask was pretty high, but that's just where we were at a year ago with cornerback. Now cornerback is kind of stacked the way that our wide receiver room was last year. You know, we went from having hardly any talent in the wide receiver room when Mario left to landing Chase Cota to essentially you're playing guys like Troy Franklin, Chris Hudson, Dante Thornton. Like, we went from a kind of like a bare bones cabinet on the wide receiver side to immense talent, where guys like Seven don't have the opportunity to play, even though they moved him to the wide receiver room. Yeah. So I just think that because Dan is finally in the seat from start to finish on this recruiting class, you're starting to see dividends because he's not, just basically kind of picking up where Mario left off, and by all accounts did a phenomenal job by doing that. But this is where we're going to see the fruits of his labor and what that looks like. I don't think it was realistic for people to just assume, like myself, I was in that group of people who just thought Dan Lanning was going to have this overhaul of our defense, because if you look at 21, we were coming off a poor defensive showing that year.
Yeah.
And so you get a guy like Dan, you just assume that everything's just going to get fixed. Well, this is this type of recruiting class that you need a baseline level of talent to perform at the level that you need to perform. And look, I don't know if you guys have talked about it yet, but the Pac-12 is going to be the hardest conference to play defense in the country.
Yeah.
You got 6 absolute outstanding quarterbacks coming back. You go on down the list, but we're going to be playing the Heisman winner. You've got Penix, you've got Cam Ward, you've got DJ, the 2 young guys. You got DJ going to Oregon State, and then Rashada gets picked up at Arizona State. Like, what is going on? So
it will be interesting. It will be interesting to see, because I heard Washington State's OC's potentially getting poached by Alabama.
Well, that he turned it down. So
if you listen
to the Pooches are loving that narrative. They're like, oh, our OC loves Seattle so much that he turned down Bama. So.
Oh, okay. I heard they were interviewing him. That's all I heard. But I have to agree with you. I think, one, to have a complete flip when you have a new scheme coming in, all the players have to learn a new scheme, and those other players are not necessarily built for that type of scheme. I mean, that's just how it is at all levels. But for Lanning to come in now for his full first cycle, bring in this, and also retain some of the players that could have also left, because when Dillingham left, I think most people went, oh no, who are we going to lose? Almost no one went with Dillingham. I think that shows you how well Lanning has a connection with these players also, and just the school in general and location and the team, unit. And that does say a lot, because almost no one went with Dillingham. Almost no one.
Well, so a point of fact on that one, though, in terms of current roster, yes, but I don't know what the chat's doing, but I'm sure they're blowing up about Dante Moore, right? Like, when Dillingham bailed, that was his boy, and you got Chip to come in and swoop him out of there. But that's a big gut check. But I mean, look, we're still, I don't know what the composite is, but I think I heard or saw somebody say we're 8th, right?
We're 8th. We're number 8 in the country right now. Right now, recruiting class, until maybe like the adjustments are made or whatever. But we're number 8. But it was also, they waited till Nick said he was coming back, and that was when I think Dante officially bailed, because I think he wants to start. And so with Nick's coming back, he's like, well, I'm going to be stuck behind him and Ty, because Ty is still there. And I think that kind of discouraged him. So it'll be interesting next season, of course, because unless Ty makes some drastic improvements, I've not seen anything that says Ty is a starter. With all apologies to Ty Thompson, he hasn't had necessarily maybe some of the chances or behind the first string of lines, but yada yada. He's not shown anything yet. And with Nick's coming back another year, bringing another quarterback to replace, of course, Butterfield, for depth, I think Ty will just get passed on. So next year I see Ty leaving.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Ben, me. Like, I've been on the Ty fan wagon for a long time. And what's not to love about a dude that sticks around even this long, when kind of the cards have been stacked against him. And we could go on and on about like the kind of situation that he's been dealt in terms of being always put in at the very last part of the game. It's always a 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of situation. They're not letting him open up any of his skills, really. And so it's unfortunate. I know that he's a good kid. In fact, if you looked at the other night when Oregon basketball I think they were hosting the Bees, maybe. But either way, the football team was in Matt Knight, and Ty's just in there having a ball. Like, you know, he's living his life, and the chatter doesn't seem to be affecting him all that much. So that's really great to see.
I kind of see him almost as like Nate Costa.
Yeah.
You know, Nate Costa was probably the last great like Oregon QB that kind of just stuck around, sat behind, came up in cleanup duty. Everyone cheered for him because they loved him. But he knew he wasn't going to be the starter, but he loved the team that much. Ty could be that guy, and I respect that. I respect the hell out of that because that's hard to find. And I like what Connor just said too. That's right. I forgot. ASU also got Drew Pine.
Yeah.
From Notre Dame. But now they got Rashada also. So that's going to be a little interesting there because, Pine was probably an upgrade in a different system. But now with Rashada, that does make things a little interesting. I will like to see DJ's younger brother sack DJ, though. I would love to see Mateo sack DJ.
Yeah,
if he starts for the Beavs. That would be amazing. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean that'll you know that storyline is going to be all ESPN is going to be pumping that one out for 6 days straight leading up to it. If it's not game day in Eugene, I'll be surprised because that's got to be a marquee. It is a marquee matchup. I think it's probably one of the best.
It's definitely a good storyline. Let's put it that way. Definitely.
Oh, all the storylines. You got USC. Yeah. You got I'm thinking about USC now, but like, with Oregon State beating us last year, the construction site. I was razzing Connor earlier in the chat, but like, them piping in all the noise into Reeser. Like, okay, now let's see what real noise sounds like. You come back to Autzen and play the likes of this new defense and everything else and see what happens. Not to mention the fact that you kind of caught them off guard last year. That I think that the psychology of it, there's something to be said there, and I think that they probably are going to walk into the Pac-12 championship game because Bo. If you remember the narrative, you saw Bo essentially heal up to the point where he was able to move around in the pocket at least. Yeah. And everybody was like, well, if Bo is healthy, there's no way we can lose this game. And so I think there were a lot of people, myself included, who thought that this was just going to be another splattering of the Beavs. And I don't think that we get caught again this year. At least that's my hope. Based on what I was saying earlier, I shouldn't be saying any of that, and I should totally expect the Beavs to win so that, the exact opposite happens.
Probably the best idea. That's probably the best idea, to be honest. Like the Huskies are going to kill us. Die, dogs, die. Like under your breath, kind of like, damn it, Huskies. I think this year, as we were talking about with Will Stein, we were looking at the rushing numbers of the quarterbacks. They're very similar: 510 to 600, 14 to 9 touchdowns. I think though this year you're going to see. I would say you'll see less of Bo running just because maybe of ankle injury, but I think he'll be held up enough where I think he seems like that guy. I mean, to come back and go, I want to compete and win. I don't think he's going to let anyone stop him from running the ball if he wants to. Maybe he'll be a little smarter and not take so many. He took a few big hits last year where I was like, ooh, that's going to hurt. So I think they will tell him, like, just don't risk it. We need you. Because if you're injured, you can't run around, then we become a little more one-dimensional, a little bit.
Yeah. No, and I think that if you want to look at the keys to success all last year, it was the running game, which included the run option off of Bo Nix and his – I mean, he is – if you look at any tape of him at Auburn, if there was ever anyone in the country who practiced more scrambling, it was him, because his O-line
was running for his life. Yeah,
exactly. And so he was really well versed at escaping pressure.
Yeah,
and so you put a stout O-line in front of him, well, he can run for days. And so
our O-line was the MVP of this season.
Absolutely, 100%.
Our O-line 100% was the best thing on this team.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting though, because I don't know if I completely agree with kind of you saying asking Bo to just kind of like maybe pause and not use the wheels as much, because it is innate. Like I think that because of what I just said, like if he sees an opening, he's going to take it, and you admire that. You want a quarterback and a leader who's going to put the game on his shoulders. But as we saw last year, that has dire consequences, and so you you
I put it to like almost similar situations of Mariota and Herbert. They would run, and they got hurt. So Nick is at that point where it's like, just try to take care of yourself. Run, get out of bounds, or slide. Don't take those wild hits like other quarterbacks have done, because at the end of the day, we've seen what's happened, and it cost Herbert a collarbone, Mariota a couple knee injuries, and then of course the final game, the championship, it caused him a hurt shoulder, and has progressed with him in the NFL. Herbert, not so much yet. We'll see how that goes. He's still young, but and we don't want to see any players on our team or other teams get hurt. We don't want to see that. But I think that's more the coaching staff going, just try to be careful with yourself a little bit. Take 25% less hits. 25%.
Well, what's crazy is that so if you think back to coming off the Washington loss where he gets hurt, the next week is in Autzen again against the Utes, and everybody was speculating: is Bo going to play? Is it going to be Ty? Is it going to be Jay? All these things. And I was at that game, and they announced, starting lineup, Bo Nix starting quarterback, and the place just went, just erupted, and everybody was super happy. And I think if you take that into account with the personality that Bo is, that gets the blood flowing. And so like I think that there's something to be said for like what that does for his motivation and his competitive spirit, where he pulls off a dub against Utah hurt. Like he was very clearly not 100%. In fact, I'd be surprised if he was above 60%. Like the dude was clearly immobile.
The rest of the season, he did not run at all. I mean, look at and Brandon probably can attest this. He didn't move. Even the North Carolina game, he ran like once. At the very end, he ran on his own.
I think that you could definitely see progression from the Utah game to the Civil War to the bowl game.
Yeah. But he was still being he was being cautious, obviously, because it probably wouldn't take much to re-aggravate it. He was being very, very cautious about his ankle.
He was. I mean, obviously, he's not going to be. In fact, there was one run play, or maybe even two in the bowl game, right, where I think didn't he convert a fourth down by a QB sneak or something like that, or was that?
I know he ran once. The QB sneak, I think that was May. They took it out of Oregon's playbook and rushed May on a fourth down on a QB sneak to get a fourth down. But I remember one specific one where he was trying to pass and he decided to run for like 5 yards to get a first down or something. But yeah, you could tell he was not like just running wild, like healthy. He was being very conscious of his ankle just in case, but that's why I think a coaching staff will say, just limit those hits a little bit if you can, Do
you guys know if it was the same ankle he had surgery on?
I think he injured his right ankle this last year, I think. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it was his right ankle.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the same ankle though as before. I'm assuming probably so. It's probably a reoccurring.
Yeah, you would think so, but for some reason I was thinking it was the opposite, in which case re-injury is sometimes more traumatic. So, obviously whatever they did during that surgery, and that Oregon's training staff is bar none, like they're best in the country when it comes to getting people back to 100%. And that was very clearly the case. Bo's coming off, being, I think, injured in November of 21. He shows up to the spring game is not hobbled at all, and so you kind of expect that. But if he's able to come back as strong as he did in the offseason going into 22, this year going into 23, then we've got a lot to be happy about. But if it's a re-injury, I think that you kind of temper it a little bit and say, well, there's going to be something there. He's going to be a lot more sensitive to getting that thing twisted up.
You would say that, but look at Mariota too. Mariota always injured with the same knee, same MCL and stuff, straining and spraining, whatever. He would come back really good. So it affects people differently, but I think he will. I think he'll be, if it's the same ankle, especially him and the staff will go, look, you can only take so many hits, and which was always weird because that Washington hit he took, he didn't get hit hard. He just kind of jammed his ankle up, on the turf, basically. Yep. That's really what caused the issue. But I would think Brandon would agree. I mean, if it's the same ankle, he's going to be cautious, I would think. I mean, but maybe he feels 100%. He's a competitor. You can tell that.
I mean, we're going to have to run him at some points. I mean, there's going to be design plays that get him to move, that get him to use his legs to be a threat and to open up the defense. But at the end of the day, I think limiting those will probably be what everybody's call. I mean, it just kind of makes sense at this point. The dude's been injured a couple of times, especially if you're right. If it's reoccurring, I think that's an easy call. I think it's use it when you need to, but not more than you have to.
Yeah, I mean, like Will Stein's stats we just saw offensively as the co-offense coordinator for UTSA, similar stats rushing the quarterback. Now, were those designed or was that all just scramble? That's a film study. I don't have that. It don't break it down into that sense. So that could have just been a lot of scramble around, saw an opening and took off like Bo did several times during the season. But I think the staff will be careful with him, and every player needs to stay healthy. So, but we're gonna see. Is it the season yet? Are we still in off season? Give me motivation, guys. Come on now.
April 29th.
Yeah.
God, it's so far away. Oh, God. It's only February 1st.
We got a little bit of time. I hate that we got so much time. But
off season is terrible. But I have to agree. We mentioned it together. Oh, crap. It disappeared.
What was it?
Oh, it's a comment. I was going to highlight it. Oh, there it is. It was commented on. We were talking about it earlier, and Robin has, pretty much nailed it. This is we're back to the year of the quarterback for the Pac-12 this year. There are a lot of great offenses in the Pac-12. I mean, again, we had Oregon, UCLA finished. They finished 9-3, right, or 9-4, or they finished 9-4, right? So Oregon, UCLA finished 9-4, I believe, right, on the season.
I believe so, yeah.
So I think it was 9-4, because they all lost to us, Arizona and USC, and then lost the bowl game to Pitt. But you had Oregon State, Washington, and USC and Utah finished with 10 wins or more. UCLA finished with 9. The conference is strong, and there are teams that are not, far. There are other teams that are not far behind, or they just need that next step to continue to be competitive. This is going to be a wild year, I think.
Yeah, so Brandon, leave that schedule up there, or the conference up, because one of the things that I think kind of helped the conference this year is that you had the disparity between the best in the conference, which, hold on to your butts, but I'm gonna go ahead and own up to it. UW, in my opinion, was the team of the conference this year. Now, they didn't make the conference championship, but if you look at their quality wins and just the overall their non-conference and everything else, Penix was electric. You gotta kind of tip the hat to the Huskies. That being said, you talk about the disparity between the top of the conference and the bottom, which is Colorado. You've now got something in Coach Prime. You don't know exactly what. My personal take is that it's more flash than dash, but I think that he's going to elevate that program. And my concern here, right, and I've already touched on the quarterback situation, but parity is not a good thing. People talk about parity and how important it is and a level playing field. If you're trying to make the CFP, especially a 4-team CFP, you need no doubt. And the way you do that is you have a conference that has more disparity and less parity. And so if you're elevating the likes of Colorado, who knows what Stanford's going to do with their new head coach? Arizona State's got Kenny Dillingham at the helm with now Rashada and, like you said, Drew Pine. Like, you've got the bottom kind of rising to the top. Not to say that they're going to overtake anybody in the top quarter of the conference, but it doesn't help. It makes that schedule harder to get through. And there's a loss. If the more you have in that loss column for the conference, you're done, son. Like, you're not going to go to the CFP, let alone a New Year's Six game. And so I think that's a real concern. People just think, oh, it's just going to be the Pac-12 dominating. Well, it's going to be the Pac-12 dominating itself unless you get a defense that comes in with a solid quarterback. This has long been my belief since the kind of the clumping in or the grouping of all these high caliber quarterbacks. You can light up the scoreboard all you want, but you cannot win a game unless you have a respectable defense. And the team in this conference that has a respectable defense, and when I say respectable, I'm talking about being able to compete at the national level against the Georgia, against the Bama, against the Clemson, you name it. You have to be able to shut down these high caliber quarterbacks. And if you're able to do that, then you have a puncher's chance in this thing.
Well, I have to think Brandon would agree, and you would agree too, Mikey. Has that not been the narrative for the last, at least 12, 13 years, 14 plus, probably? The Pac-12 eats itself. We've always had parity. We've always had parity. When was the last team? Who was the last team that went undefeated in the conference?
Well, we all know that, or at least we.
We're going to test Brandon here. He's like, oh, why am I getting put on the spot?
I'm not gonna lie. I think it's been a very, very long time. I don't actually know off the top of my head, but if I had to take a guess, I'd say USC back in the day.
2010 Oregon.
Well, it was Oregon. Okay.
Pac-10. That was the last team that went undefeated in the conference. And even then, they beat Cal by 2 points on the road. I think it was 2 points or something like that. And they had to do what was it, Mikey? Like a 9.5 minute drive just to not give Cal the ball back because they were like, we're screwed. Like, basically, it was a gut check. Like, if we give them the ball back, we're done. Like, we're going to lose. And it was like 15-12. It was like or maybe it was a 3-point game. It was 15-12 or something. It was like just one of those anomalies, but that's what the conference does.
It went into overtime too, didn't it? I think
No. It would have. I think if Cal had gone the ball, it probably would have gone in, but I think we beat them 15-12. But we got into field goal range, but we burnt like 9.5 minutes to end the game finally. Because we were just like, we're not giving them. But that's what the conference does. The highest scoring offense in the country that year was Oregon and Auburn, and Cal held us to 15 points. And 7 of that was a punt return, I think. That's how ridiculous, it gets. It's just, there you go. 15-13. Sorry, I said 15-12. 15-13, against the one or number 2 highest scoring offense that year with Chip Kelly, and that's what the conference does. That's what happens. It's so hard to go undefeated.
Yeah, and that's my concern, right? Like, I want high caliber football, And I know we're going to see that this year with the talent that's going to be on the field. But the rest of the country they don't care, and they shouldn't, because all it really boils down to is, do you have a one-loss team? Do you have an undefeated team? Do you have somebody that isn't going to get embarrassed? And until whoever it is, whoever fields a defense that can rush the passer, who can shut down the wide receivers and run stop. And let's not forget special teams. The special teams lacking. You thought we were going to be able to step up the special teams play this year, and it was lackluster at best, especially towards the latter half of the season. So I think that the ceiling is still really, really high. It's just that we're not, we're hovering around kind of like the lower third sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that you gotta elevate this defense, man.
I will say the special teams has taken a good dramatic step forward in certain areas, though, like kicking. How many times did you line up for a field goal years past and you go, oh God, just go for it. Just go for it. Like, don't even bother. And we're hitting 40+ yard field goals now. I'm like, holy crap, we can hit these? This is amazing. So I will say the special team in certain areas, but there are still lacking areas. But as
I'm talking mainly punt return.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, I think they had Chris Hudson back there a couple times, maybe 7, and it's no fault of them. You need dudes to not essentially get blasted and give those guys a fighting chance, man. So we got speedsters in the back. It's just you gotta be able to make room.
I'll agree on that. And I think what Brandon was just pointing out too is, yeah, we did get the transfer of Jordan Birch, who was a former 5-star. Never quite worked out with South Carolina, but maybe with this staff, they can put him in a better position to be effective. I mean, that's a huge pickup. And I mean, I don't really recall too many issues with our punting this year, but I did see we did pick up a punter in the recruiting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's an Aussie. Yeah,
Mr. 6'6" Aussie himself, I think he is 6'6". Good Lord. So it's going to be a great year. Again, to the chat, I know you guys have been going off on yourselves. Connor, especially, he's been here the whole time.
Thank you, Connor.
And I love this. And here's a good comment. Yeah, I have to agree right there with Austin. It didn't seem to work out with South Carolina. He was put in maybe not the greatest position for himself or, spots. But the potential is there. And it's just, can our staff unlock it and let him do what he needs to do? Will it work? Not all recruits or transfers work. It's a hit and miss process. It's a hit and miss field. That's why you have to get as many people as you can for the positions you need. And if you hit on 50% of them, not too bad, I guess. I don't know what the actual number is, but I think they say only, what is it? 40% of 5-stars ever turn out to actually do good or something like that.
That wouldn't surprise me.
There's most of them are misses, I think.
Yeah, and then in addition to that, I think 40% of all stats are made up. So, you don't know what to believe anymore.
It's going to be fun to see, and it just sucks we have to wait so long. And even the spring game is not going to tell us a lot, because the spring game has its own special rules. Can't do this, can't do that, no blitzing, time management. There's so many things. It's, usually pretty generic. So we're really not going to get to know a lot until fall camp, when, the starting lineup and positions come out. That's when we're going to really see who's showing up, balling out, and who the staff says, this is the guy. Other than that, we're just going to speculate.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Well, I don't know about you guys, but we were going to go for like 45 minutes or something like that, and we're at 2 hours, and you guys in the chat are still here. Connor is talking smack to everyone he can. I like that a lot.
You can't help but love Connor and the Beavs and the turnaround. Like Jay Smith, you know, he's a player's coach, right? Like he's an alum of Oregon State. He was one of their all-time quarterbacks, and so that in and of itself demands respect. But then he's just a good dude. You see things like him at the Boys and Girls Club intramural basketball as a scorekeeper, right? Like he's how can you not love the guy? So I'm wishing nothing but the best for the Beavs, to be quite honest, particularly because of what I talked about before. Like if you can get Oregon State to kind of like keep the defense going and you know, with DJ joining the team, I think that they have every right, especially a very favorable schedule, right? Like I think their toughest game really is coming to Eugene. And so you want them to do well. And I don't know that I've ever said that in my whole life. Good Lord, I've never wanted Oregon State to do well. But this is just kind of the state of affairs when you're talking about conference realignment. I'm not opening up that rabbit hole. I didn't mean to say those words. I'm just saying, like, the Oregon States of the world. And I think this is always funny about these the StreamYard or live streams and everything else. I am Mike Wazowski from Monsters Inc. right now. Put that graphic back up there, because if you remember Monsters Inc., if you ever watched it, there's this thing where Mike Wazowski is like super excited for being on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine or Monsters magazine or whatever it is, and it's just like this giant graphic that plasters over his face so you can't even see him. I'm loving that happens every time you put that quote up there. I feel like Mike Wazowski.
Throw comments up there, yeah.
But anyway, no, this has been fun, guys, and I just I have concerns about. Let's do it hashtag disparity, not parity, for the conference. Back the pack too, but like we gotta show out. We had a respectable conference showing this year. I think we went 500 in the bowl games, maybe one less. But in either case, it was
for the LA schools.
Yeah, and we gotta send those guys off. We gotta hand them those losses, right? So.
Can't let them win it.
Yeah, we cannot let that happen. And you got to have Oregon State pitch in on that too. I mean, they are the thorn in USC's heel. They have been for a long time. So if we don't pull off the win against USC, good Lord, let the Beavs do it. So
someone's got to do it. But
yeah,
it's been great. One, to the chat, of course. You guys are awesome because you guys have been here for a while. We've gone way longer than we were going to. That's straight up, no doubt. Brandon, you still have no social media.
Nope.
You have not made anything since we've been on this program for 2 hours. You haven't fulfilled your end of the deal here. Mikey, where can people find you if they want to follow you at here on the World Wide Web?
Oh, I thought you were saying in real life. Well, I'm in Portland, Oregon. That's where you can find me. The socials, I don't care much about. But if you're so inclined, I'm on Twitter at High Flying Ducks. It's HI Flying. I think it's FLYN. It doesn't matter. But that's Thanks for having me on, guys. This was fun. I was just gonna type in the backstage. I was gonna ask you guys some questions, and here I am, all 1 hour into this thing for me. So thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for being here. Always a pleasure.
This is a little bit of why I was like, oh no, if we start bringing people in, we know how this goes, so we can just go for quite a long time. But again, thanks to the chat. Again, I'm Ben with Exploring with Ben Sam. Dropping my link in the chat. Follow us here on YouTube. It's not a sports channel, but you can follow me here. You'll see Brandon, of course, Mikey, Connor, who is a Beaver fan who loves to spend time in the Duck chat. Loves doing that. He absolutely loves it. And to all the other great Duck fans. And then
Connor's a closet Duck fan.
He just loves to stalk us. I think that's all it is. You'll also find me probably once a month on the main channel for Mark Rogers on the After Dark show, about once a month as more news and stuff comes out, and then you'll find us here on the Oregon channel periodically as more information comes out. So once again, that's not nice, Brandon. That's not nice. He probably is. He probably is. But once again, we thank you guys for coming in and joining us. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the Oregon channel here, main channel for Mark Rogers. It helps support him and us and grows this channel more for the Ducks. And we will see you guys on